Niall. Hi, Niall. Niall has joined us. Thank you so much, Dre. It was nice having you with us. Okay. Yes. Hi.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm great. So this is the last session for today, and thank you so much for joining us now. Now is the founder of NoCode.tech, and I know NoCode is, very, very new in terms of the space here in Africa, and so I'm really looking forward to this myself because I want to start in NoCode, right? A lot of people, if you don't know me, I'm Hanifa. I'm the programs coordinator at Ingressive for Good. If you are just joining us, let us know your name and where you're joining us from the country. We've had people from Zimbabwe, from Nigeria, from Ghana, from, all over. So welcome and thank you for joining us. So I guess we're just going to get started. Yeah.
Brilliant. All right, so I go ahead and share my screen then. So let me just get the pitch up.
Okay, and while we're waiting for that, I just launched another poll to get responses. This is really important to us just so we know how best to, respond to you. And as of course, there's going to be a reward for our last session. The question is, what is UI and what is UX? So here, thank you. And yeah, up to you now.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Appreciate you having me on. As you say, I know it's the last session, so I'll try and keep it quick and high energy for everyone. But I'm here today to talk a little bit about what NoCode is. I'm going to assume in this presentation that everyone watching doesn't know anything about NoCode. It's entirely new, and so as a result, I'll talk about what NoCode actually is and sort of what it means. I'll talk about how you can use NoCode, how can you actually use it to make money or start a career in the space. And I'll also go through, my personal recommendations for what NoCode tools you should start with and sort of where you can go to learn those as well. So we'll go ahead and get started. So just as a quick introduction to myself, my name is Niall Frater. I'm based in Scotland at the moment, and I've actually been originally a programmer. So originally on the coding, the software development side, and been doing that from a very young age. But I've actually been then in the no-code space for roughly about 8 years now, and programming, with real code for about 10. And as Hanifa said, the no-code scene is very, very new in the sense that people have only really been calling it no-code, and it's really only gained a lot of energy in the sort of last, let's say kind of 2 or 3 years. But actually, no-code tools have been around really since the 90s. And they've started to really take off around about kind of 2010, 2011, which is when I got into no code myself. And so beyond that, I've got a background in financial services. I've worked in startups. I've worked in kind of large corporations. So really done a little bit of everything. And I now run NoCode.tech, which is the largest no-code information and education site on the internet. And through NoCode.tech, I'm helping around 30,000 people, from non-technical backgrounds, helping those people bring their ideas to life without coding, pretty much every month. And of course, I'm not talking to 30,000 people directly. Those are the people who are on our website, looking at the tools that are available, looking at the education, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. But let's go and sort of look at what no-code itself actually is. So first of all, the phrase no-code, it refers primarily to tools and platforms that allow a user to build software without writing code. That's all it is. It's essentially a visual way of doing programming. And there are tons of different tools and platforms out there. We're going to look at some of them soon, but depending on what you're trying to build, depending on what your level of ability is, there's usually a tool out there for someone and for everyone. And so, primarily the way these tools work is you have a visual interface. You usually have some blocks or some things on the side that you can drag and drop and ultimately start to kind of create an interface. Um, and so, how these tools work varies and who they're aimed at varies, but ultimately, people are using these tools to build startups, and not just, at the very beginning, the sort of minimum viable product level. People are using these to build really serious, revenue generating startups that are making tens of thousands or even millions, in some cases. But at the same time, no code's also been used in large corporations or large enterprises, and equally, it's just been used, by hobbyists. I spoke to someone yesterday who uses no code tools just to organize their life. They've got an app for shopping, they've got an app for gardening. So you can really use no code anywhere you like, and ultimately, no code is still programming. It's not nearly as difficult as programming. It's a lot easier and quicker to learn, and there's a lot of differences that we'll come to in just a second. But ultimately, you're still going to have to think about how does the software work? When a user clicks something, what should happen, and does that make logical sense? What other services do I want to go and work with? It's very different from building a website, for example, where you just have to pick how it looks and feels. When you're building a full no-code app, you still have to think about absolutely everything that happens in that app. And so that probably brings me nicely to what actually makes no code different from coding, because you might be listening to that thinking, well, sort of just sounds like it's just as hard. So there's a few things that no code does. First of all, no code is going to take care of common functionality. Now, I believe earlier today you've been hearing a little bit about things like product design and software development, and something that's true for almost every product that we all use is they all have a set of functionality that is ubiquitous, that is common. So, for example, I imagine every single app that you have on your phone right now has login and sign up, and so pretty much every developer out there ever has coded, easily 10, maybe even 100 different sign up and login forms. They all look a little bit different and have slightly different wording on them, but they all do the same thing. And so no-code platforms tend to just take care of this for you. If you log into a no-code platform, usually there's already a login system, there's already the ability to take payments, to send emails, it's all kind of done. And on top of that, as well as making that easier, no code also tends to make interface design easier. In the same way that we code a lot of the same functionality over and over again, we also use the same interfaces, right? If you think again about a sign up and login, not only does it work the same way underneath the hood, it checks if the username and password is working, but actually it tends to be that a login is going to be, a little box that asks for your email, a little box that asks for your password, and then a big button that says, sign me in or log me in. And so again, no code makes this easier. If you are not a coder, but also not a designer, you can still make pretty good looking apps with no code. And we'll talk about that again in a minute. In terms of programming, yes, it's similar to programming, but it also is simpler. You don't have to learn as much or use as much functionality. And no code will also handle scale and maintenance. One of the most common questions I get is how far can no code apps scale? And the answer is really, really far. I mean, I was speaking to someone this week who has a mobile app built without code that has over 350,000 users. So no code will take care of that without you even having to worry. Whether you've got one person or 100 million, maybe not quite that many, but between one and about a million, you won't feel the difference. No code platforms just take care of that for you. So it's not just about visual programming, it also just takes away a lot of the hassle and the pain of programming. So if we go over to the next slide, as good as that all is, there are obviously some caveats. There is a catch, there is a but. First of all, it's still software. The thing that is very annoying about computers is that ultimately they do exactly what you tell them to do. And if you tell them to do something that is slightly wrong or isn't quite right, they'll do it and your app will break. And so, even though it's no code, you still have to think about absolutely everything that could go wrong. So, what happens when someone puts in a username that's too short to your login form or a username that's too long? or if they try to put in, a different alphabet like Cyrillic or something like that. These are the kind of things you have to think about. You also then, as a result, still have to spend time debugging. Now, if there's anyone on the call who's ever done programming before, and maybe the other speakers talked about this, but there are so many instances when I've been programming where you you create some sort of bug, some sort of issue, and it takes you days to figure out what it is. And you've got to kind of go through and test each step of your app and figure out where the problem is. And usually it turns out to be something, something silly, something that you just wouldn't have predicted, and something that really shouldn't have taken 3 or 4 days to fix. But it happens in code and it happens in no code as well. And then finally, that brings us on to what we call the 80-20 problem. The idea being that no-code platforms can usually build about 80% of what you're looking for, but then on the last 20%, sometimes you have to compromise. If you're coding with real programming, real coding, you can do literally anything. It's infinite. But with no-code platforms, you need to make sure they've got the functionality and the features that you need in order to build whatever it is you're trying to build. The good news here, though, is the no-code space is moving incredibly quickly. As an example, I have a newsletter on NoCode.tech that we send out every 2 weeks. And, for a long time, we have been mentioning free tools in that newsletter every week or every 2 weeks. And that keeps our community up to date with all the new tools coming out and everything that's happening. And really what we're finding now is it's too slow because every week, for me to pick the free tools that go in the newsletter, I now have to go through 10 or 20 because so many tools are coming out every single week, every month, every year. And so as much as this is an 80-20 problem today, I think we're quickly getting to the point where it's more of a 90-10 problem. So now you can build about 90% of what you want and the last 10% isn't quite right, or soon it'll be a 95-5 problem, So just something to keep in mind, and quite often if one tool can't do it, another tool can, but we'll get into detail about that in a little second. So let's talk about what you can actually build with no code. We've talked a little bit broadly, but I've got a list here that I think, covers most things that most people would want to build, mobile apps, web apps, marketplaces, membership sites, e-commerce, customer support tools. It really is limitless. But you can build almost anything without code. Yes, there may be some corners you have to cut. Yes, there may be some issues you run into. And yes, you might still have to do a little bit of learning. But broadly, you can build whatever you like without code, and you're going to be able to do that a lot quicker than you can learn, to do real coding or real programming. And so, yeah, you can build literally all of these things here and a lot more as well. And of course, in order to do that, we have a pretty big ecosystem of tools, and we tend to sort them into various buckets here. Now, this image I got on the internet, I think about a year ago now, and so it's probably moved on a little bit, but I think it's good at calling out some of the big names and the big tools in this space. And usually when we talk about no code, the conversation does tend to focus around the tools, because each tool has its own education to teach you how to use it. It has its own abilities, but also it has the ability generally to connect to other tools. And so you might find that to build the right solution, you're going to be joining different tools together. You may have a website built with Webflow. You may connect that to a e-commerce store built with Shopify, and then maybe you're using Airtable as a database behind that. Maybe worth taking a little screenshot of this if you want to come back and look at it later. I can send the slide around as well, but this just gives you a little idea of the various different tools you've got there. And you can see, yeah, you've got stuff in the web apps and website space and the mobile app space, as you would expect. But interestingly, no-code is also pushing into gaming, into augmented and virtual reality, into data scraping or big data manipulation. So it's not just about building products, it's about building games, it's about analyzing data, it's about automating things, between different systems. I mean, this really is a field which is as broad as actual programming, and in my view is going to be adding even more value to the world in the next couple of years than programming does. It's not always a replacement, but especially if you're trying to bring something to life, especially if you're at the early stages of a project, no code really is a quicker way to get started. So let's move on from this, and I'll talk a little bit about what you can't do with no code. Now, a quick caveat: this is a list of things that are not impossible without code, but more things which are not easy. You know, if you ask me to build a mobile app or a website or a web app, those are all pretty easy. There's lots of tools to do them, and it's widely understood how to do it. But some of these use cases here, um, they are either not possible, or they are possible but very difficult, or they're possible but they're just not very good. You would be better just spending the time coding. So if we look at 3D modeling, video games, VR and AR, you know, yes, you can do it. Yes, there are some promising tools, but it's not great at the minute. I probably wouldn't try to do it without code. And similarly with kind of audio production and usage, you know, if you wanted to build something like Spotify, again, there are ways you can do it. And in fact, we have a tutorial on that on our website, but it's not great. You know, you can't control audio as well as you can, you know, without or with code. You certainly could not at the minute build a music production tool, or at least not a serious one, you know. No-code tools can also struggle with very, very large volumes of data. Now, there are tools that specialize in this. Parabola is a good one, and we've got that on our website as well, and I've mentioned it there in the box, but most tools would struggle with gigabytes or terabytes of data. You know, it doesn't mean they can't handle a lot of users, but they do struggle with, you know, saving tons and tons of data to a database. And similarly, you know, as a result, or almost the cause of that is most of these no-code tools are cloud hosted, and therefore it's very rare to have desktop or offline apps built with a no-code tool. Hardware, again, there's a few things here like Zapier and if this and that, but if you want to do hardware, you probably need some coders. If you want to do something highly secure, now this depends entirely on your country and the regulation there, but typically, because again, no-code tools are hosted mostly on the cloud, then it's very difficult to do banking, healthcare, and other such use cases on these tools today as well. Now, there are some tools like backendless, like Channel, and like Microsoft Power Platform, which allow you to self-host, and therefore you can use these use cases. But again, majority of platforms won't let you do it, and that's true for machine learning as well. A few tools here, I think Lobe.ai is one of them, but not a huge amount in this space at the minute. But you know, let's forget the limitations for a second, and actually talk about how you can make some money with no code, how you can start a career in no code, and what that sort of looks like. So, you know, I think ultimately, clearly, you can build, you know, startups and products with no code, but there are also jobs that are starting to emerge in the no code space. Now, this is pretty immature, and we're not quite there yet. But you can have no code operations jobs where you might use Airtable or you might help automate things. You can have a citizen developer job where you would use no code skills to actually develop products for a company, a little bit like, you know, normal software development jobs. You can have automation developers, which is pretty similar, except it's more about automating data and moving it around and doing robotic process automation. And then, of course, you can have a no-code implementation expert, which is generally when you're working in a business to help them adopt other no-code tools and help them work, you know, as productively as possible. Now, those are just the, you know, some ideas of the kind of jobs you can go out and get. But of course, there are other ways to make money. One of the big emerging areas at the minute is freelancing. Now, a little secret that I can let you guys in on is this: there are not enough no-code developers for the amount of demand out there. There's a ton of demand. There are a ton of people who want to pay really good money to get things built without code. Um, but there are just not enough people doing it. So one of the best ways that you can make money, you know, this month would be to learn some no-code skills that we'll talk about in a second, and then go and start doing freelancing on platforms like CodeMap or on Heap. And if you look on our website under the outsourcing section, you'll find those in there. We'll talk about that in a wee second. But freelancing is a really, really good way to make money in the no-code space at the minute, especially if you can start an agency as well. If we move on slightly, there are a couple of other things you can do. So you can earn by creating. You know, if you're a really good designer, for example, then you could make templates in popular no-code tools like Bubble, like Webflow. People can use and sort of copy and then build their own sites from. You can do that with plugins, can do it with really all sorts of different things. Many of these no-code platforms are still emerging, and so there are lots of people just like you who are new to no-code, are trying to get started, and are quite happy usually to pay a little bit of money for a template that's going to let them get started quicker. So again, it's a really, really big business, and often the platforms will help you market those templates to their audience as well. And then finally, one of the most interesting ones, especially to me, because this is what I do, you can earn money by teaching no code and writing about no code. So here I've got two job posts that I found today. One of them is from Adalo, a mobile app builder we'll talk about in a second, and the other's from Stacker, a web app builder we'll talk about in a second as well. And Adalo are looking for people who can teach other people how to use Adalo. And it's quite a simple process. You learn how to use the tool over a couple of weeks, and then you film videos telling people how to get best out of it. Similarly, Stacker are looking for content writers to write, all about, what are the best no-code tools out there? How do you use them? How do you earn money in them? Almost every kind of topic we're covering today, Stacker are looking to put out articles that cover those in more and more depth. And so, if your main ability is writing or filming, or you're comfortable doing that, then all you need to do is add on some no-code skills there, and you'll be super marketable. And I can, again, let you in a little secret, every single no-code tool out there is trying and struggling to find good writers and good, teachers or educators for no-code. Again, there's a good bit of money in this, and it's very high in demand. So it's a really good way to earn at the minute and help, introduce no code to more people. But with that all in mind, let's get to my opinions on where to start. Now, I say my opinions because, I'm going to go through some tools that I think are useful to know, but ultimately, you can start on any tool, and it really depends on exactly what you're trying to build. What I will say is every tool you're going to see here has its own education. So if you want to learn to use that tool, you can go to that tool's website. But at the very end, I'll also show you some links to our website and where you can find, high quality education there as well. So if we get started, Adalo is the first tool that I'm going to mention. If you are building a mobile app, then Adalo is the most flexible mobile app builder out there. It's my personal go-to no-code tool of choice. I recommend it every day to lots of different people. And if you're trying to build a mobile app and you need a little bit of flexibility, you need a little bit of power, and maybe even if you want to do apps that are, multiple-sided, like, something like Airbnb, where you've got a guest app and a host app, Adalo is the tool for you. So definitely recommend checking that out. If you want to use Adalo, but you're not so confident in your abilities, and you maybe want to build a mobile app, maybe on a platform that's a little bit easier, then Glide is a really good recommendation. This is hands down the most easiest to use, accessible app builder out there. It's a really, really good place to start. And if you're using Google Spreadsheets or anything like that, Glide uses them as their database, so you'll fit right in. Moving on from Glide, if you are a designer and you use Figma and you're really particular about making sure that your designs can translate to no code, Bravo Studio is a tool for you. We get tons, literally thousands of designers every month coming to our website, finding Bravo Studio, and they love it because they can design in Figma, as they're comfortable with. They can hit one button and Bravo pulls it straight into their app and builds an app. So all you need is Figma, and Bravo will turn that into something that works. Definitely needs a little bit of design skills, and it also helps to be a little bit technical with Bravo, especially on the back end, but really, really good, solid tool. Now, if you're building a web app, and if you've done anything in no code before, you've probably heard of Bubble. It's one of the oldest tools in the space. It's been around since 2010. And it's also one of the most powerful tools in the space. If you want to build a web app, I can almost guarantee that Bubble can do it. I don't know what it is that you're trying to build, but I know that Bubble can almost certainly do it because it's so powerful, so flexible. There is one, caveat to that though, which is it's pretty hard to use. It does take a while to learn. Versus some of the newer no-code tools like Adalo, Glide, and the others that I've mentioned, Bubble, I admit, is starting to feel a little bit outdated now at almost 12 years old. So really worth looking into, but not necessarily my first recommendation for a beginner. Although I will say they have a massive education library. It's really, really good. Now, another thing that you could use, and actually we use this for the NoCode website, which is what I've got in the screenshot there, is what we call the WAMS stack. It stands for Webflow, Airtable, MemberStack, and Zapier. And essentially, you combine these 4 tools together to get the best of both worlds. So, you've got Webflow that will let you design anything you like. You've got Airtable, which is a super powerful database. You've got MemberStack, which lets you do logins and signups and emails, etc. And then you've got Zapier, which is a platform that essentially connects together almost every app or service out there that you can think of, and then lets you kind of organize those into workflows that you can then use to power your app. So we use this on the NoCode website. And it's really, really powerful. Check the website out. You can see sort of how it works, how good it looks. It's an amazing no-code, set of tools to use. Now, there may be some other stuff in here that you kind of want to build. So, if you're looking at those 2 options and thinking they look a little bit tricky, Software is a really good option as well. It's almost the Glide of web apps. It's aimed at newcomers. It's really easy to use, really powerful though, really, really quick. But maybe not quite as powerful yet as Bubble, the WAM stack, and those kind of options as well. But if you're daunted by the last 2, really, really good one to check out. And if you're building a marketplace, something like eBay, something like Airbnb, where you've got buyers and sellers or renters or guests or something like that, ShareTribe is really, really good for this. So ShareTribe just as a marketplace builder, that's what it does. And it'll let you get set up really, really quickly, which is good because marketplace businesses are really, really common. But not necessarily the easiest business to build. So ShareTribe will do that out the box. It's not as flexible as doing it with, an open no-code tool, but it is there if you want to give it a try. And if you have some sort of technical experience or you want to build an API, then Xano is the tool I'd recommend. Super powerful. It's actually Turing complete, which is a way of saying you can build literally anything in Xano. So, you could build Xano in Xano. Pretty crazy, but you can do it. Super powerful. It goes really well with Bravo Studio for building logic. But if you're a beginner, probably steer clear of this tool for now. Back-endless, very, very similar, very, very powerful. It kind of has this kind of jigsaw style way of programming that you can see here in the picture. Again, it takes a little bit of a learning curve, but if you're looking for more scale, looking for more power, if the other tools I've shown you here look like, a little bit kiddie, then this is a tool for you. And then finally, the last tool I'm going to show you is Stacker. Now, if you're building something for work, if you want a client portal, or if you've got a database that you want to put an interface on, Stacker will do this out of the box for you. It just lets you connect your data sources, bring them together, and there you go. Now, it's a little bit basic today, but it's adding features very, very quickly. So if you're more in that kind of large company space, this is a tool that you want to use. Now, coming on to my just last couple of slides here around, where to go next. First of all, if you want to find some more tools, then just go to nocode.tech/tools in your web browser, and you'll find everything I've mentioned there and 250 other tools there as well. If you do want to go ahead and learn no code, as I say, you can go learn these tools specifically. You can go on their website, they've all got education, but if you do want to pick up key concepts that are applicable across all tools, then here are the things you want to know. It's worth knowing a little bit about UI and UX. It's worth knowing a little bit about databases. It's worth knowing a little bit about, workflows and logic, and it's worth knowing about APIs. You don't need to know them as well as a coder. You don't need to know them hugely in depth. But if you can either go on the tools websites to learn that, or of course go to nocode.tech, where we teach that as well. These are the concepts that are going to help you get the best out of no-code tools and sort of use them. And then finally, if you do want to learn it, as I say, go to nocode.tech/learn. We've got lots of information there. And of course, you can also go on Google, you can go on YouTube and find a lot of this stuff. Under nocode.tech/learn, we've curated a lot of free resources that are some of the best stuff out there that you can access now for free. Or similarly, if you want to go through a more guided platform taught by myself, where you'll learn about those fundamentals, database, UI, UX, workflows, etc., everything from the previous slide, then check out our NoCode University. Now, I have noticed I've put the wrong link in there. It should be nocode.tech/education. You will find it on the website pretty quickly if you go there anyway. But if you use the code India12, you'll get in there for a big discount as well. But if you're trying to find those fundamentals, it's a really good place to go. So I think I'll leave it there. Hanifa, I'm wondering if I've got any questions from the audience.
Yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I have my pen here. I've been taking notes. I'm so glad. So yes, we do have a lot of questions. Oh my God, so we have more questions than normal. So quickly run through this. Adiola says, this sounds amazing. This is the first time I'm hearing about no code. Okay, great. Decency said, no code, is it a programming language? Does it use code?
So ultimately, when you're doing no coding, you will never see the code. You will never, have to touch code. There is code underneath the hood. Ultimately, what a no code tool is doing is just writing code for you. But you don't ever have to see it or worry about it.
Awesome. Does no code has limitations? If yes, what are the limitations? Okay, so I think you've gone through this already. And then we're going to be sharing the slides after this. So please just like go through your emails. We're going to share the resources, the slides, and even the link to the video. Next question. No code is not a language. It is a type of user interface. Okay, somebody's responding. Okay, I think we've gone through a lot of these. This information is very difficult to process. Terminologies are so new. Absolutely. I agree with you. What do we need to learn to get started?
So, I think it depends on exactly what you want to build. The best thing to do with no code is to decide what you want to do with it. So, if you want to build a product, then great. Is it a mobile app? Is it a web app? If so, then go use some of the tools that are recommended and see what you think. If you're more kind of thinking, well, I'd like to do some freelancing, I'm not too fussed about building my own thing, then it helps to get an understanding of the basic concepts. And you'll find those on our website, but it helps to get an understanding of, okay, how do I design on web on no-code apps? How does a database work? But it's also worth looking at the most popular tools that are out there. If you go on heap.so, I'll put that in the chat so people have got it, but if you go on heap.so or codemap.io, that'll give you a good idea of what kind of jobs and freelancing work is available out there. You'll probably see a lot of people who want to use Bubble. You'll probably see a lot of people who want to use Adalo, and so using those tools and learning to use those tools is a great way to get started in the freelancing world as well.
Awesome. Next question. So we have Mide asking, do you advise switching to designer? Okay. No code as a person who's also training as a UX. I guess switching from a UX UI designer into no code. Do you advise that switch?
Yeah, so I think the thing that's good is no-code tools feel a lot like the tools that you as a designer use. So if you're using Figma, Sketch, Photoshop, no-code tools feel like that, which means the transition is very easy. And to me, I think you absolutely should do it. At the minute, if you are only a UX designer, then someone else must take your designs to bring them to life and make them, valuable and productive. Maybe you have to give them to an engineer or a developer. But if you do no code, then you yourself can take your design, you can turn that into an app, and you can make money from that, or you can, help, freelance and design something for someone, then build it. So I think absolutely, it's a really good way to take your skill and make it more valuable.
Awesome. So I think we've gone through all questions. And yes, you could reach out to Naya or at Naya on Twitter, I guess, and also on LinkedIn. So if you have any more questions, send an email to community@ingressive.org, and then we're going to, try to make sure we are able to respond to these questions. And like I said from the beginning of this session, this is just a very short 30-minute session to take you through how to get started in these different tech skills. And we're going to be working hand in hand with our amazing speakers to, help you get those resources, easy access to those resources questions and answers to these questions that you have. And at Ingressive for Good as well, as a nonprofit with our mission to train 1 million African youths, we are also working hard to get access to free trainings that would, get you started as well. And thanks to Niall, he has given us a code that will give us, discounts on when you go on NoCode.tech to learn. So please start on that one. I know I'm going to start on that one. My new year, new code text is here for me. So we're at the end of the session. Thank you so much, Niall. It was so amazing, and thank you so much for coming through for us. We really, really appreciate the your presence. Okay, let me know if you can hear me. This is the end of day 1 of Tech for Newbies, and we have the final question. Now is a founder of what company? It runs what company? Let me know the answer in the comment section, and Kamal, my community advocate, will be reaching out to the first person that answers correctly. And like I said, follow us on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn at Ingressive for Good. You can also follow me at this Hanifa. Let me write this down here. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out. You can also send an email to community@ingressive.org. Let me also write that down. Yes, so all resources and videos from today's session will be uploaded on our YouTube channel. We're going to follow up with everybody with it. What else? For our question winners, yes, we have, okay, so I'm going to list them out. We have Jessica Ahilome, who answered the first question correctly, yay. We have Habib A, who answered the second question correctly. And the third question, we have Victor Anyal Lewechi. I hope I didn't butcher that name. I'm so sorry about that one. And then the final question, who do we have? Let's see. Yes, we have Sheil Osoni. Yes. Sheil Osani. So for the 4 people that I mentioned, kindly help reach out to community@ingressive.org. We are also going to reach out to you to give you your rewards. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. We really, really appreciate your presence. Thank you so much, Niall. Thank you, Kizito. Thank you, Dritz. Thank you, Arias. It was really amazing having you all today. And I really enjoyed myself. And if you did as well, and you learned one thing or the other, please tweet at us at Ingressive for Good and use the hashtag I4G Tech for Newbies. And that's it for today. I'm going to play a little bit of music. Have a nice day, y'all. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.